And there are a lot of steps to getting it to go live, I have found out.
It says meeting is now streaming live.
It's loading on my end, so it'll just
Okay.
be a minute.
It does like this preview thing. I had it working really well for a couple of events, and then it stopped working for me, and I haven't yet troubleshooted it back to working. So I'll figure it out one day.
We are live, so go ahead, Peg.
Great. Good evening. Welcome everybody to Delaware County Democratic Party's Vote Blue Happy Hour. We're excited tonight to have two special guests. We have Dr. Beth Liston as well as Dr. Rachel Morocco. Each of them is a practicing physician and they know a lot more about the coronavirus crisis than I do. I want to introduce Dr. Liston first. She was elected to House District 21 2 years ago, and she is originally from Worthington and is a member of the faculty of Ohio State, currently a professor of internal medicine and pediatrics in the Division of Hospital Medicine. She's a clinician educator focusing her academic studies on developing and teaching curricula for health professional students. She's also a national leader in interprofessional collaboration, and she is in her legislative role, she focuses on healthcare, public education, and economic development to ensure strong communities. She currently lives in Dublin with her husband, Denver, and their two children, Madeline and Adam. Dr. Liston, would you like to say a few words?
Sure. Thank you, Peg. That's a lovely and very thorough introduction. I appreciate it. I wear a lot of hats, although I think they all come together. As you heard, I'm a physician in background, but I think now more than ever, it's pretty clear how much health and policy impact each other, and certainly with coronavirus and all that we've been experiencing, that lens I think is important. So that was the lens I brought to the State House, and over the last year and a half, it's been a year and a half since I've been there. A lot of my focus and work in legislative roles have been trying to bridge that gap in understanding that there's so much that goes into wellness. Now, some of my work is very specific towards healthcare, improving access, making sure prescription drugs are affordable, and some of it is more general, right? Thinking about education as a predictor of health outcomes and that we need those systems in order to stay well. And obviously these days with coronavirus, it's very wide and broad in its scope. I'm running for re-election in 2020. I'm hoping to keep representing Dublin-Worthington, northwest corner of Franklin County. And I am grateful to be here and speak with everybody, answer questions about what I've been doing in the State House. And if people have medical questions, I think Rachel and I complement each other really well, actually, because I have an inpatient perspective, she has the outpatient perspective. And so hopefully we can provide information that help people navigate this difficult time. So thank you all, and I'm happy to be here.
Very good, thank you. I want to introduce Dr. Rachel Morocco next. She's originally from the Cleveland area and went to the Lake Erie College of Osteopathic Medicine. She's always felt drawn to caring for children and chose pediatrics as her career. She did her residency at Rainbow Babies and Children's Hospital in Cleveland, which is very famous, and now currently works at Nationwide Children's Hospital as well. She and her husband, Frank, live in Lewis Center, and they have two sons, Dominic and Dylan, and she is also now a professor at Ohio State. One thing I wanted to point out that is not in her resume is that her opponent in Ohio House 67 is Representative Chris Jordan, who is anathema to many of us here in Delaware County. And I'm really delighted that we have such a strong candidate running against him. And I really want all of Delaware County Democrats and middle of the road people to do everything we can to get Rachel Morocco into the Ohio House.
Thank you, Peg. That was a very nice introduction. So as she mentioned, I'm a pediatrician, and that's really what drew me to run for office, was just my experiences in my clinic and what I was seeing from families in Ohio and the real issues that they were facing. Issues with healthcare, of course, like things like the cost of medications and insurance, and but also the everyday issues, things with education, issues with education system, and just having a a job that supports their families and having food on their table and being able to afford childcare. And these were issues that I was seeing kind of day in and day out. And just as a physician, I was tied, my hands were tied as to what I could do. And so that's why I kind of looked for a bigger way to be an advocate. I did some work with Moms Demand Action. And I spent some time in the State House advocating for gun laws. I also did some community programs to help with safe gun storage and reducing unintentional shootings in children. But I really felt like moving to the State House with my experience would be kind of a good step to become a better advocate for my patients. So I'm running in the western part of Delaware County. I'm very excited about my campaign. I have built a really strong team. I have a lot of super volunteers who are really excited and motivated to make this a very successful campaign. So I feel good. I feel like this is a good time in Ohio. We really need some change in the State House. We need more women, more Democrats, more people with the science background in the State House. And that's really why I'm here and that's why I'm running. So thank you for having me.
We're delighted to have you.
Thank
Melanie,
you
do
so
we
mu-
have?
Yes, I do. Thank you so much, Rachel and Beth and Peg. We're really excited to have you both tonight. This is such an important time in our state and our country, and we're getting some incredible comments already on our Facebook page. Thank you for all you've been doing at the State House, Beth. You're amazing. We're so grateful for you. Someone else said, can't wait for Rachel to join you, Beth. Two incredible women.
Me too.
So
we need Rachel.
We're certainly really excited and so happy to have you here tonight, and so thankful for technology to allow us to do stuff like this. And I know Beth is actually picking up a shift at the hospital tonight, so she has about another half hour with us. So we're going to dig in. So currently right now, you're both while practicing medicine, also running or for office or reelection. I was wondering, in your capacities at where you're practicing, what are you seeing around coronavirus? Are you seeing those type of symptoms? Are you testing? What can you tell us about that situation? Rachel, if you'd like to go first.
So I am practicing so I'm doing general pediatrics, and actually our clinics initially, when all this started, we had converted some clinics to well clinics only and some clinics to sick clinics. So at Children's, we have a network of primary care centers, and we were trying to figure out the best way to kind of meet the need of what we were going to see with all of this, which we didn't really know what that would be. But I currently work in just doing well visits right now. So I see kids. We're trying to make sure that children are not falling behind in their vaccinations, because that's a big concern with people not wanting to come to the doctor. They don't feel like it's safe. But the last thing we need is another outbreak from something else because kids are not being fully vaccinated. So we're really making a big effort to make sure we're getting kids in who need vaccinations. We've also been doing a lot of telemedicine, doing things like visits over the phone, so we're making sure we're reaching out, making sure our patients have what they need. As far as seeing coronavirus, I've seen kids with it. The kids I've seen have very mild symptoms. So a lot of them are coming in. Most of them I've seen are coming in because a parent has been tested positive or testing the child, and they may or may not have very significant symptoms. I know in the hospital, I'm not sure if that's been in the Children's at all, but there have been very few kids who've been admitted for coronavirus. So luckily for this issue, we're not seeing a ton. Our biggest concern right now is moving forward is with the daycares opening and, sports and whatever is going to happen with summer camps, all of that. I don't know what's coming, whether it will, kind of be better or worse. It's hard to tell, but we're trying to just anticipate what will happen as kids kind of get moved back together.
Now, Beth, you're in a different clinical situation working at the hospital. Are you treating coronavirus patients?
Yeah. So my group is a hospitalist for hospital medicine is what it's called. Our group takes care of all of the patients who are admitted to the hospital with coronavirus, as long as they're not in the ICU. So I'm not an ICU physician. So those that need the ventilator or breathing tube to breathe, or critically ill there in the ICU, we have a step-down unit and regular medical surgical type floors and admissions. So yes, that's the adult side. I will say I've been a little bit at children's, not as much. Obviously, there's not as many kids that are getting coronavirus, and we, the jury's still out on what those complications in the long run might be from infections. But so far, there's not a lot of admissions, although, we test pretty aggressively. Anyone who comes in is being tested to try to make sure that we don't spread the virus. But yes, at OSU, and I will just say that the views that I'm saying are my own and not of my employers. But yeah, we do manage other patients with coronavirus, and as long as they are not in the ICU setting. So it was an interesting start, I think, at the very beginning of this. The hospital's emptied. People stopped coming in, which in some cases was good. I think there was some, everything elective was canceled, but in some cases it was people being afraid to come into the hospital because they didn't want to catch it. And so there was a lot of delayed care. And one of the key messages was, if you're having a heart attack, please come into the hospital. If you think you might be having a heart attack, please come into the hospital, don't wait. And so at the beginning, it was mostly, it was a quiet before the storm, and then our numbers picked up. We still have a pretty steady census of people with COVID-19 that we care for, but those who delayed care are coming back to the hospital. So actually, our overall census are pretty high at this point, because those that didn't come in earlier are now in the hospital setting. It's still a little funny in there. It's lonely. People don't have visitors by their bedside. No matter what you come in for, you still rely on technology to communicate. And obviously our wonderful nurses and amazing staff that help to keep those connections in addition to the physicians. So it's a little surreal in the hospital setting now. But.
So we just got a comment on our Facebook page. Rachel, ready to canvas Orange E for you, and a donation is on the way. So
thank you very much.
Thank you to Jack there.
Thank you.
One question I had is, what is your advice to people really confused by the competing messages that we're getting? There's so much out there about, wear a mask, but is a mask really going to help you? Stay home. And then, we see over the weekend, a restaurant had tons of people on their patio. There are people on both ends of the spectrum, and it can be really frustrating to really understand what is the right thing to do. You want to go first, Rachel?
Yeah. And I think wearing a mask has kind of, I think, become almost a little bit too political of an issue, when it really is just a general safety issue. And I wear a mask when I go anywhere, to the grocery store, when I go out, I do. And it's not about necessarily always keeping myself safe. It's more for me of protecting those around me. And I think as a member of society, as someone who is part of a community, it is our job to make sure we're protecting everyone around us. And I see 20 plus patients a day, with their parents. So 40 people a day I'm in contact with fairly closely, because I'm examining the children. So while I am wearing, a mask and eyeglasses and gowns and gloves, if I need to, I still am in contact with lots of people. So I don't know if I'm an asymptomatic carrier, and I don't know if, 3 days from now I could be sick. I don't know. So it's my duty to make sure if I'm going to Kroger, or I'm going, to the gas station, wherever, that I'm not infecting those around me. And I think that's the big thing about wearing a mask. It's more about just trying to limit the spread when we are back together. I do think social distancing, all of the measures that we're doing are very important, because it is important that we're staying apart as much as possible, because we are trying to limit the spread. So I think it's important that, it's good that we're opening. It's important to support the economy, but I think we just need to be safe and make sure we're maintaining our distance, and we're just being safe when we are together.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to address that, Beth?
I think some of the controversy sometimes comes because people think about each thing as a yes or no. Are masks going to stop all of coronavirus? Well, no. But are they going to add a little layer of protection? Yes. And is a cloth mask better than nothing? Yes, as long as you don't touch your face, I think is sometimes the concern. You have to make sure that you're not touching your face more. But I think these days in society, people know that. And and make sure they're not touching their face. Is a surgical mask probably a little bit more protection than a cloth mask? Yes. Is an N95 mask, which is, those masks that, make sure that you only breathe in and out of a filter that gets rid of 95% of particles, that's going to be safer. Is, absolutely staying in your house going to be safest? Sure. But, if you're going outside is safer than inside. If 6 feet is safer than 3 feet. And everything that we do adds incremental layers of protection for the people in our community. I, like Rachel, wear the masks, but mostly because I'm afraid of spreading it. I don't want to be an asymptomatic carrier. I don't want to get others sick. And so I would encourage people to view it that way. If you're going to be around people be cognizant of what, of their health and what we can all do together to make sure that we're helping each other.
Now, there's been a number of pieces of legislation on the state level kind of on the topic of coronavirus. I know that was it Tuesday or yesterday, the Senate kind of quashed the legislation that would have taken some power away from Ohio Department of Health Director Dr. Amy Acton. And then there was a mask bill, I believe, that the Republicans, it was really a vote on party lines, Republicans denied. What else, Beth, can you tell us about, if you want to make comments about those two pieces of legislation, and then what else is there happening in the state house that we should know about having to do with coronavirus?
Yeah, so the two things you're referencing, I'll start with the second one first. One was a resolution to require to change the rules in the House such that masks are used on the House floor. And that did fail along party lines. I would say Democrats tend to wear the masks, Republicans don't. It has become a political issue, one that I don't really understand. Anything that we can do to keep each other safe is a good thing. And right now we're dealing with an unknown virus that has affected millions of people across the globe and, resulted in close to 100,000 deaths in our country. So whatever we can do, I think, to be thoughtful and helpful is a good thing. The second question was about the Senate response to the House bill. There was a bill that went through the House, again, on party lines with 2 Republicans who voted against, that would make it so that the public health director's orders, so all of the things that we've been doing for the most part are orders, the closures of businesses for orders from the Department of Public Health for public safety, that the bill stated those orders would only last 14 days and then go before a legislative rules committee to determine whether they should be continued. And I will say that legislative rules committee consists at this point of only lawyers because often it's interpreting laws and rules, which seems like a difficult place to put public health policy, and certainly one that I did not feel was appropriate and thought would be dangerous. And I think the Senate agreed. So it was very much against what the governor has been doing in terms of, I'm pretty confident the governor would have vetoed the bill as well. And I think the Senate was standing behind that. In terms of what's happening with coronavirus, I know that my caucus has a lot of bills that we're working on to try to make sure that people are supported and get the access to medical care, that if they're sick from coronavirus, that they can get unemployment compensation. If we have bills that are looking at if your employer opens and you are not safe to go back to work because of pre-existing conditions, that you don't lose your unemployment at that point. I would say that there's a number of bills that our caucus has put forth. I think that bills that I think someone put a question in the chat about job training and funding for additional retraining. I think, unfortunately, anything that has a funding associated with it is going to be a challenge. We've done some small measures, like I think we had a bill in the House that decreased penalties for delinquent taxes. Obviously the tax deadline was delayed. We're looking at making sure that people have more economic flexibility. But I think state spending is going to be a continued challenge, and how we address that is unlikely to involve new spending at this point.
Rachel, did you have anything you would like to add about the legislative movement?
I not much to add, but I do want to say that, as a physician, kind of in the general public, I do really commend Dr. Acton on how she's handled all this. I do think that how they've kind of been thinking through this and how they've been trying to use data on to make their decisions was really been something to see. And I really admire her as a physician, as a public health leader. And so I would support her and her decisions given how she's acted thus far.
We do have a question. I don't know who can answer this one. Is specifically about pools. Is there evidence that pool water or chlorine can diminish the spread of coronavirus? Some pools are opening, some pools are not. So is it safe to take your kids there?
So I'll start, and you can add if you know more, Rachel. So I think the chlorine in pool water inactivates the virus. I will say that with the caveat of anything we know about a new virus is new, but the chemicals in pool water that are designed to kill organisms appear to kill coronavirus. So in that respect, I don't think you're going to catch coronavirus from pool water. What you have to weigh is the rest of the pool setting, right? Make sure that the pools are keeping everything clean and have the ability to wipe down between people, that not everyone is crowded together in one space and transmitting for those who are already there. So I don't think it's the pool water itself, but it is definitely an area that would lead itself to be to spread coronavirus unless the safety measures were taken seriously.
Anything to add, Rachel?
I would say, I think it's a personal decision. I think if you're going to like a community pool and that it's very crowded, I would, think twice about it. But if they are separating the seats and, your kids aren't necessarily going to be like wrestling with the other kids in the pool, which is the thing kids do a lot, making sure that they're kind of keep maintaining their space. I think it's safe, but you just have to watch the number of people who are there and who are around you.
One of the things that made a lot of headlines was that the governor decided not to use the state's rainy day fund. Instead, he made cuts to a couple of things that a lot of us as Democrats feel that are very important: education and funding for healthcare for the needy. So is there a thought that the governor might be holding that back for use later? What are your thoughts on that?
So we were close to $1 million shortfall in the 2 months ending this fiscal year, with a projected $1 billion, I apologize, $1 billion shortfall, and with a projected shortfall of close to $1 billion in the latter part of this calendar year. So the answer is yes. There is going to be use of the rainy day fund. I can't imagine that it wouldn't be used. Obviously, cuts to education and cuts to healthcare during a public health crisis are harmful in ways that we will all feel. I think the intent, for better or for worse, and I would say I think those locations are worse. That's not where we as Democrats feel they should be made, but that they're going to have to be made. So the one-time rainy day fund at this point does not seem likely to be enough. And so, yeah, it will be used, and hopefully revenue will improve as everything opens up. But I'm concerned about the testing amount. I'm concerned about new outbreaks. I think we are not completely out of the woods at this point, and it's going to be a tough balancing game. So it's not a great situation financially for the state.
Switching gears just a little bit, let's talk about how this pandemic has really just completely done a 180 on what it's like to campaign for an office. There's so much in-person conversations, house parties, door knocking, and right now you can't do any of that. Rachel, if you'd like to go first and just kind of talk about how that evolution has happened for you over the previous 2 months and what you're planning moving forward.
So it's definitely been a very interesting couple of months. You know, we had like a campaign plan on how I thought the spring and summer months would go, and that involved a lot of in-person events and door knocking, and that's not going to be a thing probably for the next several months. So we had to just get really creative in how we can get my name out there, how I can get out there and meet and talk to people or virtually meet them, I guess. And that's definitely been an interesting kind of challenge to this. So we're trying to do a lot of Zoom house parties. So, this kind of event and just trying to get that in place of the in-person house parties. I think it'll be a lot more digital, a lot more, postcards and phone calls, and a lot more, kind of getting out there on social media. It's just definitely a different kind of campaign. But I think it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see, what the changes are and whether this works. And, it just kind of a way, I guess, to make it your own campaign, because no one has the traditional rules of campaigning, I think, are all kind of, out the window because of all the changes. So it's going to be a very interesting campaign, but I think there's still a lot of ways that we can be creative and get out there.
Now, Beth, you had your campaign 2 years ago that was traditional. You did the in-person events, you door knocked, you talked to people and had that personal connection. Now this time around, it's totally different.
Yeah, although I think there's still a lot of opportunity. I think we were all getting really used to Zoom and virtual meetings, which has accelerated a lot in this time frame. And as a little bit of an introvert, I think Zoom meetings are wonderful. And house parties can be intimidating for people to throw because they have to worry about what their house is like, or if they have refreshments, or how many people show up. Whereas Zooms, if 2 or 3 people show, that's a great conversation. So I would encourage people to host Zoom meetings with whatever social group they have. If it's a book club, a running group, a happy hour, if it's a cards, a bridge group that often meets, think about inviting someone like Rachel to come and meet the people there, because it's an opportunity to connect with those who may not have their finger on the political pulse, like I know lots of people and who are watching and are here do. And so you have those networks and the ability to say, everyone's at home anyway, a little bit more than usual. Let me send you this link and come meet this great candidate who's has a great vision for our state and would be really value added. So I would encourage that for anyone who's watching, reach out and to reach out and say, hey, I want to host a Zoom for you. The other thing is that paid media is going to be a bigger deal because we can't go door to door. So there's a lot of going to be, as the campaigns wrap up or wind up, reliance on mail and digital ads. So I would say go to rachelmorocco.com and make sure that you've been there. You feel strongly about Delaware County having excellent and amazing representation, one that will bring a great perspective. So that's going to be important, and it's not easy during this time. Obviously, not everyone has the ability to donate funds, but if you do, it's an investment for the state. So.
I was going to ask you about fundraising. It's kind of a icky topic sometimes with campaigning to talk about how much you need to raise and things like that. But has your feeling about, the amount that you need to raise and the amount you need to spend on certain things, has that changed, knowing that, we're in such a crisis right now in the state of Ohio? Has that really forced you to kind of rethink that part, one of the necessary evils of campaigning?
I don't know that it's necessarily affected like what I anticipate of raising. I think it definitely changes what you're going to spend your money on. Like, so you're good, like I said, a lot more digital things, a lot more looking at creative ways to get out there, much less than just paying for like the literature you would be using when you're knocking doors, or different things you can use when you're in person. So you definitely, I think it's more pushing towards digital use of money, but I don't think it necessarily changes how much you, I guess, need to raise. Just it's used a different way.
And you need more. Unfortunately, it's harder to raise. You feel less comfortable asking, and I think people are going to need more. I will say my opponent raised $200,000 in her first quarter in December. We haven't had a lot of reporting in the interim, so certainly, although I am an incumbent and feel good about my district and my community and what I've done, I certainly still have to be able to compete with the ads that type of money can purchase. And so, you know, it's hard. It's a double bind. We're in a situation where people feel less able to donate, but the money becomes more important. So.
Now, Beth doesn't necessarily represent anywhere in Delaware County, but we love Beth. And she even spoke at our Catch a Rising Star fundraiser last year. So, you know, folks in Delaware County are really supportive of you. And I just wanted to give you a chance before I know you have to run off for a shift at the hospital. Tell us what we can do for you to help you get reelected.
Yeah, so thank you. And I think that the thing that you can do for me in order to get things done in the State House is elect Rachel. So I'll just say that, you know, we have a super minority, and in order to even think about addressing the state line, or, you know, the lines for all of the districts, which happen after the census next year and the next General Assembly, that every seat matters, and it's really important to break that supermajority and get a voice that's stronger for next General Assembly. So make sure everyone listening in Delaware County is supporting Rachel and getting those Zoom meetings going and building those connections and networks. For me, probably if you're in Delaware County, you can't necessarily hold the Zoom meeting and help me connect to voters, but I still do phone banking. We do a lot to try to reach out to people in the district and make sure they have all the resources they need. If they have any questions about what's going on in the state government, we still do postcards, and then obviously.
Great. And I'm going to see if I can unmute Steve Mount. He is running for the Ohio State House District 68 against Rick Carfagna. He joined us. Your face, for some reason, popped up for a minute on the live stream, so I thought I would introduce you right now. Steve, how are you? Are you quarantined in your home for the last 2 months, staying healthy, I hope?
I am doing well, Melanie. Thank you. Yes, basically quarantine, although we started back to the office this week, and that's a strange experience in itself.
Well, thanks for joining us. Since what I'm talking to right now, we were kind of turning to the topic of what can we do as Democrats in Delaware County to get you elected? Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
I appreciate it. So I do. So I am Steve Mount. I'm the candidate for the 68th Health District, which is the other half of Delaware County from Rachel's district, plus all of Knox County. And I did ask if I could crash the doctor's party tonight, a lawyer crashing the doctor's party, to talk briefly about gerrymandering, which is the issue I really been focusing on lately. I've made several posts on my Facebook page, so please go to there. I'm becoming more and more to believe this may be the most critical issue. And that sounds like an overstatement, but until we get our representation aligned with our voters, all the other issues Democrats care about will never be able to affect. So I think, you know, and Peg tell me I can have 5 minutes. So if I speak quickly, I'm trying to meet my limit here. So I think we all know generally these statistics in Ohio. The districts were redistricted in 2011 by Republicans, very severely gerrymandered. Since 2011, the statewide Democratic votes for Congress, State Senate, State House have ranged between 48% and 52%. So some of those years, Democrats were in the majority, vote-wise, statewide. But yet, consistently, Democrats get 4 out of 16 congressional districts and an extreme minority in the Senate and House. And so that's why I believe, you know, Ohio sometimes looks like they're competing with Alabama. No offense to my friends in Alabama, to be the, you know, to take some of the most extreme positions. So we have an opportunity to change that. And you may know generally about this, but based on constitutional amendments in 2015, 2018, new procedures will apply next year, but they're not bulletproof. They're really not. They are designed to try to have fairer districts, but the supermajority is important. You may know that the campaign slogan for the Ohio caucus is supermajority buster, but that has real meaning here. You know, right now, Republicans have 72% of the Senate, 61% of the House. And in these new procedures, 60% is really important, and the various layers you go through. So if we could break the supermajority in the House, and keep in mind that only takes 2 House seats to change, everything else being stable, that we would be in a much better position to make sure the new redistricting is fair. Whether we could break that in the Senate is more of a challenge. So I just wanted to make that brief statement. Again, I'll direct you, I'll advise you to look at my Facebook page for some posts I put there. I know it sounds like a boring rule, but again, sometimes these rules really make all the difference. So I appreciate the opportunity for this brief commercial here with our Delaware County Democrats. Thank you.
Well, Steve,
Thank you
I
go
want to
ahead,
thank
Peg.
you for coming tonight and being a part of this, because we certainly want to showcase our candidates every opportunity that we can. And I want to piggyback off of the topic that you presented about gerrymandering, because we have 2 excellent candidates this year for the Ohio Supreme Court. Their names are Jennifer Bruner and John O'Donnell. Each of them has been a part of one of our meetings one way or another via Zoom already this cycle, and I expect to see them more as things progress. And I also wanted to let everybody, all of our party members listening, know that ODP is working on more digital organizing tools, and those will be coming to Delaware County to help us develop the skills we need to operate in this new campaign environment. I also wanted to say that candidates need money, and they will be asking people for money, and I will chime in and support them asking for money. I was really glad to see that Jack said he would be making a donation to, I believe that was Rachel's campaign. Rachel needs money, Steve needs money, Dr. Liston needs money, our local party needs money too, because we will support local candidates. So if anyone has not joined the party recently this year, or if anybody wants to make a special donation during the month of May, we are awarding the top 7 donors with special masks. I'm sorry, I don't have one to model, but we have some special Democratic themed masks that people can win by making a donation during the month of May to the Delaware County Democratic Party.
And for everyone's information, I will post the websites for Steve, for Rachel, for Beth, and for the county party on our website and on our Facebook page, so you can easily find them. Now, Rachel, I have some more questions. Now, Beth did have to go. She, like I said, she's picking up a shift at the hospital tonight. And Steve, if you don't mind staying on, I know your connection has been a little spotty, so we'll try to stay connected, and you can answer these questions as well. We had a question about gun violence. It's the #1 cause of death in the US for children 0 to 17. Do either of you feel that identifying gun violence as a health emergency, should that happen? Will it happen? Is there legislation that you would want to support, like background checks, things like that? So Rachel, would you like to go first?
So gun violence is actually quite near and dear to my heart. It's, you know, and I do think that gun violence is a public health crisis. It is, over the years, if you look what the leading cause of death has been in children, slowly gun violence guns have been increasing, and they've taken over as in many areas the leading cause of death in children. And that's a huge issue. And it's, if you look, there was some data from the fall about the rates of suicide and how suicide was the leading cause of death in children. I think it was like 7 to 10, I can't remember the exact years, but it was alarming data with how overwhelming it is that guns are just such a big issue. And I do think there are a lot of things at the legislative level that can be done. Universal background checks, which is actually supported by over 90% of Americans support universal background checks. In Ohio, you can buy a gun. If you go to a gun dealer, you have to get a background check. But if you buy one online or from like a gun show, you don't have to get a background check. And there's actually like a website that's similar to like Craigslist that you can just go on and you can buy any kind of gun that you want, and no questions asked. You just pay for it exchange it. And I think that's very frightening because you don't know who is getting their hands on those guns, and really we just be safe about it. I support that if the Second Amendment, if you want to own a gun, as long as you're doing it safely. And I think getting a background check and making sure that all the kind of boxes are checked off is very important. So I think that's a very important issue. I also think red flag laws are important as well. And red flag laws have been shown in many states to decrease the rates of suicide. So that's a big issue that when you look at guns, you automatically think of like the homicides, but actually suicides are 2/3 of gun deaths. So that's a big issue that needs to be addressed. So yes, the long-winded answer is yes. I do think that gun violence is a public health issue and crisis.
One of your supporters, Rachel, just reminded me that just this week you announced you're endorsed by Everytown,
Yes.
which is an organization that fights for common sense reforms to fight gun violence. And then also Moms Demand Action, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is an organization you've been involved with for sure. Now, Steve, I feel bad putting you on the spot because I didn't prepare you, but is there anything you'd like to add on the topic?
I'm happy to speak to this. I appreciate that. Yes, I very much think we need some reasonable gun regulation in Ohio. Our current legislature, of course, is going opposite direction, promoting stand your ground laws, which nobody needs, making less limits on concealed carry, et cetera. I'm actually on record of frankly supporting our governor's Strong Ohio bill, which is actually a very weak gun bill, right, despite the name. I know a lot of Democrats don't like that because it is so weak. I guess my theory is if you, in this state today, with a Republican governor, can get any gun legislation, that would be a good start. So, yes, I would. I think we definitely. I think that would be a good start, and then, go from there.
What other, aside from gun violence and also gerrymandering, which you spoke about, what other topics would you tackle when you got into the office, Steve?
I just very much think we need to support workers who go back to our core as Democrats. So I think increase the minimum wage, better maternity, paternity benefits, daycare options. I just don't know why we haven't done that. And I just think it's often seen as anti-business, and I'm not anti-business at all. I am a businessman in a sense. I'm a lawyer. I represent businesses. I just think, happy employees who can live on their wage and be satisfied will make a better business. So I am a strong supporter of family policies and worker policies.
How about you, Rachel?
Education is a big issue for me. And the funding for our education for our schools is been ruled to be constitutionally unfair. And we really need to fix the funding for that. At K through 12, fixing the formula. I also really believe in trying to support a universal pre-K or pre-kindergarten year, and then also supporting higher education, so post-secondary education. I think that this pandemic is going to change a lot of things for a long time. I think the recovery, both economic and health-wise, is going to be difficult for Ohio. And I think that we have a lot of issues ahead of us. And as you can see from the funding that they already have cut from education, I mean, that's going in the reverse direction of what we need. So I really think we need some strong members in our House to work over the next several years to recover from this, because this isn't going to go away. It's not like it just we hid in our houses for 6 weeks and now coronavirus is gone. I think the effects of this are going to last for a long time, and we really need to focus on how we can recover to get back to where we were, but also moving forward, focusing on the issues that have kind of become magnified by this. So education has become magnified. There are a lot of kids who in this distance learning don't have access to Wi-Fi, don't have a device to do their schooling on, don't have lunch, don't have food when they're not in school. Those are big issues, issues with, paid sick leave and not going to work when you're sick. I mean, that's something that we really need to focus on and have a way for people to stay home when they need to, and to be able to find affordable childcare. So there's a lot of issues that have become really important, that have always been important, but I think have become hopefully more on the forefront because of what we've been going through over the last couple of months.
Rachel, I also realize I don't think I gave you a chance to answer the question, what can we do for you as a party, as voters in Delaware County?
For me, the biggest issue I have with the campaign is just getting out there and getting people to know who I am and to know my story and why I'm running. So what I really need is people just to start to talking about me. So if you would be interested in having like a Zoom get together, also just telling 5 of your friends that something about me, that you've heard about me, that maybe check out my website or my Facebook page. Really, I just need to get my name out there. And of course, also money. Money is important, but equally as important is getting recognition and just, getting to be known throughout the community.
In fact, you and I have just recently been emailing about me holding a Zoom for you.
Thank you very much.
And I thought Beth's idea was really great. She mentioned, if you have a book club, if you have a,
Yes.
Bible study or whatever, and that's such a great idea because I am having Zoom get-togethers with friends where we're
Yeah,
chatting,
that's
and
fun.
that's a really great idea to introduce you to people who don't know you yet.
Right.
Another free option for anybody who is interested is writing a letter to the editor of your local newspaper. And I was asked to write a letter about Chris Jordan and his support for the action to limit the authority of Dr. Amy Acton. And I slipped Rachel Morocco's name in there because I want people to know that in Delaware County, we have an alternative to Chris Jordan. We don't have to keep putting up with him. There is an excellent alternative, and we all need to turn out to vote for Rachel Morocco in this fall.
Thank you.
A lot of us saw that because we posted it on the party Facebook page, and it was one of the most popular posts that we've had recently because I think it really resonated. I think people are sick of Chris Jordan. They're sick of the Republican policy. They're tired of Rick Carfagna and the folks making the decisions in the State House that a lot of them are just really baffling. We just have a couple minutes left. Rachel Spencer messaged, we can beat Chris Jordan if we have the funds to be competitive. And he just posted the link in the comments. So hi, Spencer, I miss you. So we just have a couple minutes left, and I'll give both of you a chance for some kind of final thoughts. Steve, would you like to go first?
Well, I'm happy to be doing this. I hope I can, make you all proud and do a good showing and actually win. That would be wonderful. It's a tough district, as we all know, but I think there might be a blue wave. I'm not sure about that. I think Biden may take the state, and that would all help. So I think with top of the ticket help and some demographic changes in my district, I have the suburban Polaris Westerville district. There's a chance here we could go of it.
Thank you, Steve. And like I said, I'll be sharing Steve's. Is the best place to go your website or a Facebook page? What would you recommend?
I'm actually using my Facebook page exclusively now. So if you could post that,
I will. Thank you very much, Steve. Rachel?
Well, thank you for everybody who has supported me so far. I really appreciate that. We definitely have a tough journey ahead of us, but I really think that there will be a blue wave. I do think we're ready to change. I've never thought that I would run for office, and running for office has been a very interesting experience so far in a good way. And I really do feel motivated that this is the right time. This is the right thing for me to do, and that we really can make a difference. And Ohio, we just need some change. We need some change. We need to start focusing on the important issues that our every family is facing, and we just need to work towards that. And I just, that's what I'm here for. That's why I'm running. I just want to make things a little better for the future of Ohio. So I appreciate any support you could give me. And I really just thank you all for everything you've done for me so far.
Thank you very much, Rachel. And we can't wait to watch both of you progress through this campaign and win in November. Peg, did you want to wrap things up?
Yes, thanks, Melanie. And thank you both for being on the call. Thank you for running for office. That is really a brave thing to do. And I am hopeful that our party will provide support to each of you this fall. And I hope that everyone on the call will help support the party so that we can produce slate cards so that every Democrat up and down the ticket, from Joe Biden down to county commissioner in Delaware County, we need to give support to these folks. We need to identify who the Democrats running for Ohio Supreme Court are. And none of this happens without financial support. So please donate to the candidates, donate to the party, and then do whatever you can to volunteer to help support our wonderful candidates. Thank you both for being here.
Have a good night, everybody. And cheers from our happy hour.
Yes.